They even funded Media Matters. They funded Politico.
Wait, what, really?
Yeah, absolutely.
USAID gave money to Media Matters?
They also gave money to Pfizer. They're out of the top 10 recipients, number 2 on the list of USAID was Pfizer.
So USAID is the money laundering arm of the CIA, basically, right? It's the linchpin that connects our State Department, the Department of Defense, and the CIA. Its budget is twice that of the State Department and the CIA.
So what number is that then?
I think it's $50 billion.
$50 billion.
A year budget.
Wow.
Yeah. So USAID goes into third world countries over a 10, 20, 30-year period, and they use NGO structures like you would use offshore bank accounts, basically. They use an NGO, they fund an NGO that funds an NGO that funds an NGO that carries out their dirty work, basically. And Lindsay, you guys can jump in on that.
It's absolutely correct. And I think one of the reasons that Elon is so adamant to go after them, especially one of the first things for DOGE to attack, is because they were the ones that were funding the censorship industrial complex. And they went to war with Elon with the advertiser boycott ban, and that was literally funded by USAID.
Wow.
It was funding the NGOs that was funding. They even funded Media Matters. They funded Politico.
Wait, what, really?
Yeah, absolutely.
USAID gave money to Media Matters?
They also gave money to Pfizer. They're out of the top 10 recipients, number 2 on the list of USAID was Pfizer. So it's insane that our U.S. tax dollars are going to not only funding these overthrowing of governments in other countries, but it's also funding now NGOs and having them do the work that they themselves cannot do. When you have a non-governmental agency that comes in to censor people, but it's being funded by a CIA cutout, it's because the CIA can't do that. It would violate the Constitution, the First Amendment rights. But when an NGO does it, and you have all these other universities and institutions that are joining together to collude and come up with a scheme and plan to censor the American people. It wasn't just during COVID, but it was also during the 2020 election, where they started to form a plan to censor anything about mail-in ballots before mail-in ballots was even talked about by anybody, and no one even knew anything about it. So they were already putting together a scheme of academics and these NGOs and all of these former CIA directors on these boards were forming a plan before it was even a known issue for the American people of how they were going to censor them and how they were going to keep them quiet when all these mail-in ballots became an issue. So it's a scandal of the century for sure.
So when you were there, what were they doing, and what did you know about?
Yeah, so I spent most of my time at the State Department. So
can you sorry,
I'm so sorry. Yeah,
you can pull it way up.
Way up. Okay. Yeah. So I spent most of my time at the State Department, but in 2016, I was on the transition team. So I was responsible for combing through all of the congressional budget justifications and going through the line items and identifying kind of some of these issues that we've realized now. But the momentum from the outside of pressuring these agencies or cutting them wasn't there. So I had nobody to go to, really. So here I was, 23-year-old looking through all these numbers, but there was no one in the administration at the time that was really willing to cut them. So I spent 3 years at the State Department in kind of the humanitarian area. And then I went back to the campaign in 2020, and then John McEntee, I don't know if you guys have heard about him. He called me when I was on the campaign. He's like, Catherine, you got to come back to USAID. We gotta shut it down.
What year was that? Sorry.
That was 2020.
Wow.
So because I had spent 3 years at the State Department, so I had a lot of experience there. And he was assembling a team for the second term because, the first term, there were a lot of issues with personnel. Unfortunately, Trump didn't know who to trust. So he brought in a lot of people that he thought were good, but ended up not being good. So John called me and asked me to come back and be the White House liaison and staff the agency with people that were actually going to execute Trump's agenda. Unfortunately, I showed up November, 6th of 2020, the day after the election, and there were so many people already there in place that just didn't want to change, didn't want to leave, and we just didn't have the top cover we needed, unfortunately. So we weren't able to accomplish what we wanted to accomplish. But
so there was an effort in 2020 to dismantle USAID.
Well, it was, yes, absolutely. but we didn't have the climate wasn't there. There weren't people from the outside like you guys talking about all this crazy stuff. So we didn't have the momentum that we have now to do what we wanted to do.
Wow. So that says to me that when Elon started talking with Trump, Elon Vivek, about DOGE, which I can't believe he actually got that name through. It's amazing. It sounds like Trump already had this intention. With the funding of, I did read that there was this coordinated advertiser boycott against X, where they were they were literally pressuring all these companies to drop their ads, and USAID was funding some of those NGOs that were pushing for that. Sounds like Elon got pissed, talked to Trump. Trump said, we're trying to get rid of it. Elon said, let me come in and gut it. And that's why top of the list when he gets in was to target this institution. Seems like Trump was going to do this with or without Elon.
100%.
I think
So I had a private investigator run every dollar that the United States government has sent to Guatemala in the last 4 years. We've sent $797 million to Guatemala in the last 4 years. And 497 million of that went to USAID directly, and then a ton of other NGOs that are structured under USAID. He did a favor for me. He went all the way back to Obama in 2012, and we've given the Guatemalan government roughly $4 billion.
I'm going to pause real quick, and I'm going to tell you why I keep saying USAID. Because saying USAID is like saying anti-fascist. It is a manipulative term.
Sorry,
So,
I've been saying it for so long. I'm used
right,
to it.
but this is what happens. When I turn on The Daily Show, they say Trump is shutting down USAID. People don't know they're talking about an institution, the Agency for International Development, and they think Trump is literally taking water away from dehydrated little children in third world countries.
Not a chance.
Right, and so when people... USAID is the same thing as saying Antifa. They go, aren't you anti-fascist? And you're like, bro, they're going around beating people with clubs, okay? I'm opposed to what that is, but they're opposing. Shut up. Then when they come out and they're like, but you really are opposed to USAID? I'm like, the institution USAID, yes. Foreign aid we can have a discussion about after maybe we secure our borders. Anyway, I digress.
So I was actually at the State Department yesterday visiting some of my former colleagues, one of whom is running the whole reorganization. And so Secretary Rubio issued some waivers, because there was a stop order on all foreign aid going out the building, right? But he issued some waivers saying that if this is life-saving medicines, or if this is critical, mission critical, or totally in line with our national priorities, then, we'll review them and keep them going per the review. And there's been so much insubordination that some of these employees are actually refusing shipments and deliveries of the goods that we're sending just in spite of whatever's going on. So here they are crying, oh, Trump's shutting off all of our funding and blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, my friend Pete was like, no, actually, they're not doing their job now. So we can't get these things to wherever they're going. That's how bad it is.
It's what we saw when Trump shut down the DEI stuff. Mm-hmm. You saw that they're like, okay, well, now we're not going to teach about the Tuskegee Airmen. And it's like, whoa, listen, we're not saying don't tell people about important things that happen in history. We're saying stop being racist. But to spite the machine,
right,
these scumbags are pulling moves like this.
And saying that he was going to cancel Black History Month was another move from them whenever he canceled DEI.
But wait, didn't they shut down identity months? I heard that.
DOD, yeah.
He still issued an order to celebrate Black History Month on February 1st, though. But there wasn't anything said about that when it actually happened by the mainstream media. But the fear-mongering was there, just like there's fear-mongering going on for anyone taking the buyout from Trump to quit and get paid for 8 months. You hear Senate Democrats and on CNN today about how there's no guarantee that these people will actually get paid on the 8 months if they take it now, and if they accept the resignation and the buyout by the Trump administration, that they're on their own. And so, although 40,000 people have accepted it so far, there's still
more.
60,000 now,
Yeah.
which is good, but there's still a big fear-mongering campaign that you have no legal recourse to collect your money if he doesn't follow through and pay it, which is absolutely ridiculous. They're just trying to...
But that's not what they're saying. The Democrats said, there is a chance if you take this, you will not get paid.
Right.
What they are saying is, we intend to shut the government down in March, once we have the ability to block a continuing resolution, and we will block your pay if you take this deal. So on the surface, once again, they
So
play.
they're going to do it.
Yes. They are playing these. These are the games that are played, which we be very careful of. Saying things like Antifa or USAID or you might not get paid. They're trying to insinuate that Trump would block the money. No, Trump's a deal maker. He says you're going to get paid till the end of September. The Democrats then came out and said, we will shut the government down if you take this deal. They are looking these government employees in the eyes and say, if you take Trump's deal, we will you over.
Yeah. No, and that's what it's really going to come down to. I mean, this is another issue that we had the last time around. So when we were finally in office, right, I was at the State Department, reviewing the budget that we made, because you make it internally and then it goes through OMB, Office of Management Budget, and then OMB officially sends it to the Congress. And at the time, Senator Bob Corker was the chairman for the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and he hated Trump. So every time that we wanted to cut something, he would just plus it up again. So this, I think, is going to be another issue that we're going to see, because obviously the Congress is in charge of funding things. So it's going to be interesting to see how Trump's team handles this issue this time around, because I think they're a lot more seasoned. The momentum is there, like I was saying, and I think the pressure needs to continue because these members of Congress, at the end of the day, they want to be popular, they want to get funding, they want to, win their elections. So if there's this drumbeat and pressure that's kept on them, we may have a chance to get some of this through.
I just want to point out, I went to the website. I went to USAID, USAID, you see, .gov. And in 2014, the top recipient was the World Bank Group for $2 billion. That's the important thing about telling people when they say it's USAID. It's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure the World Bank is not in need of handouts.
Yeah. Well, you'd think, too, that they would go to some of these countries that all this money is going to and get some spokesmen from these countries, because you go into these countries that USAID operates in their country, and they are literally begging us. I was just in Guatemala, just in El Salvador. El Salvador, over 60 or 70 years that USAID was in their country, USAID was in their country, El Salvador has turned into the deadliest country in Latin America. Guatemala, over the last 4 years, has had 190,052 children have been kidnapped out of Guatemala, trafficked through Mexico, and processed into our border, at our Texas border. Those are children aged 0 to 17 that our government has taken custody of over the last 4 years that are just from Guatemala alone. How do you move that many children out of Guatemala? You don't. But 5 NGOs were just raided on April 25th of 2025 for trafficking children. And these are the same NGOs that are getting funded by USAID and are operating both in Guatemala and in Texas.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Culture War podcast. We're live every Friday, 10 a.m. to noon. So subscribe and come hang out.